So what if one of history's most famous myths isn't a myth at all? What if it's actually a timeless blueprint for spiritual predation? Yeah, we're talking about the deal with the devil. But you gotta forget the horns and pitchforks. Today, we're gonna dissect the Faustian Bargain as a calculated, high-stakes financial transaction, a kind of spiritual foreclosure that's engineered from the start for total ruin. Let's break down that blueprint.
Okay, so picture this. We're in Reformation Germany, a time of just massive theological chaos. This slide really sets the scene perfectly. See, the devil in this story doesn't just show up and tempt someone. No, it's way more clinical. He performs psychological surgery. He's weaponizing the specific anxieties of the era to exploit a soul that's already in, quote, severe spiritual peril. This isn't just a simple bargain, it's a targeted attack.
All right, so before any loan is ever offered, right, the lender has to find the perfect borrower. So let's take a look at how the perfect mark is crafted. A character who is specifically designed to be vulnerable to this exact kind of spiritual debt.
And this just illustrates it perfectly. You've got these two critical fault lines in our protagonist's soul. On the one hand, you have this immense intellectual pride. I mean, he's a brilliant scholar who wants to know everything, to transcend human limits, not through faith, but through forbidden knowledge. But then, on the other hand, a crippling high-stakes existential dissatisfaction, a deep, gnawing anxiety over damnation and grace. So you've got pride and you've got fear. It's the perfect internal conflict for a predator to exploit, and it's what makes him completely miscalculate the risk and the reward.
You know, the source material gives us this absolutely fantastic analogy. I want you to think of him as this magnificent, top-heavy galleon. His intellectual pride, that's the towering mast. It's catching way too much wind. And his existential fear? Well, that's a massive crack in the hull, just below the waterline. He's taking on water in a spiritual storm, and he's desperate for any port he can find.
And boom, right on cue, Mephistopheles arrives. But he doesn't look like a monster. No, he's presented here as the ultimate cynical banker of the human spirit. He doesn't just offer some generic deal. He comes in with a pitch that is perfectly tailored to exploit those two psychological weaknesses we just talked about.
So the first line of attack targets his pride. It's the promise of ultimate Gnostic certainty. What does that mean? It means secret, divine knowledge that lets him bypass faith altogether. Mephistopheles offers him a definitive, capital T, truth understanding of God's will, the secrets of creation itself. And the key thing here is this isn't about believing, it's about knowing. It is the ultimate appeal to his ego.
Now, the second attack vector, this one targets his fear. This is the promise of unrestricted freedom. It's a direct solution to his feeling of being powerless against God and the church. He's offered a life with no mortal limits, no religious rules. But as you can see right here, this promise of liberation is actually a self-destructive trap, one that leads him straight into total servitude.
And these two temptations, they work together in perfect harmony. Gnostic certainty offers freedom from doubt, which totally satisfies his pride. Unrestricted freedom offers freedom from authority, which calms his fear. Put them together, and you have this absolutely irresistible proposition that leads our proud, anxious scholar right to the dotted line.
So, the offer's on the table. Now, let's really get into the anatomy of this thing. Let's break down the actual terms of this dangerous, high-interest spiritual loan. It's time to read the fine print of the diabolical pact itself.
You know, the pact is structured exactly like a predatory loan, and it's got three key parts. First up, the principal. This is the loan itself, what Faust gets, a finite, limited period of gain, packed with all that knowledge and power he's been craving. Second, the collateral. This is the security for the loan, and it's the ultimate security, the complete, non-negotiable surrender of his soul. And finally, number three, the imbalance. This is the hidden trap that's built right into the contract structure.
And that right there, that's the core of the trap. The entire deal is defined by a catastrophic imbalance. He's trading a temporary, finite period of gain for an infinite duration of damnation. The terms aren't just unfair, they are literally designed for him to fail. This loan is engineered from the very beginning to guarantee he's going to default.
And this really brings us to the core diagnosis of why he fails. As the source puts it, the whole transaction highlights his profound spiritual and financial illiteracy. He's so blinded by the promise of immediate gratification, getting what he wants now, that he completely fails to calculate the true infinite cost of what he's buying on credit.
So, he's heard the pitch, he's seen the, let's be honest, completely predatory terms, and now he makes his choice. We've reached the allegorical climax, the moment the contract is sealed and that self-destructive trap is finally sprung.
The signature in blood really says it all. It represents a conscious, a willing choice to trade faith for certainty and an eternal soul for just a little bit of temporary power. He's been seduced by temptations that were literally engineered for his psyche, and he signs away the ultimate collateral for a loan he can never, ever hope to repay.
And of course, with any loan, especially a predatory one like this, there's always a collection date. So now let's look at the consequences of the pact. The final, inevitable foreclosure on this spiritual mortgage. And just as it was designed, that period of gain turns out to be finite and totally illusory. The debt comes due. The tragic foreclosure of the spiritual debt begins. The soul is collected, and that grand illusion of freedom is replaced by what it was always meant to be, an eternity of servitude.
So let's just recap this whole predatory process step by step. It starts with the environment. Anxious Reformation Germany creates the perfect vulnerability. Then you have the target, a proud, disillusioned scholar who's the perfect mark. In comes the predator, a psychologically sharp Mephistopheles who designs the perfect attack. He offers the bait, tailored promises of certainty and freedom. This leads to the trap, the pact is signed. And finally, the end, the inevitable foreclosure, a profound moral warning against buying temporary gain at an infinite cost.
And that really brings us to the core of why this story has lasted for so long. Its genius is in understanding that the most effective predator, the most tempting offer, it doesn't promise you the entire world. It identifies the precise, secret void in your soul and simply offers to fill it. Which, leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought. What's yours?